Hey everybody, welcome to the show. So, you guys have been hard at work asking a whole bunch of questions in our, I guess, recently-ish created questions channel over in our Discord. And as the podcast description says, you can ask the devs question and we'll answer them. So we figured, since the queue has now become massive and everybody has been firmly broken out of the winter stupor and we are back in full swing, we are creating another Q&A podcast. With me today, I have Loren and Joris. Say hi, guys.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, everybody.
And we are going to be launching right into answering your questions. So, first one. How well does browser gameplay compare to actually running the game on a PC?
Well, I'm guessing to pass that on off to Joris for starters, as he's been spending quite some time on that lately.
I have been spending a lot of time with it and having a lot of fun with it. Performance currently is 25-ish% slower than the native desktop application. As for features and like gameplay elements, everything is exactly the same. So it's a little bit slower. That might sound really bad, but our game client currently runs at almost 1,000 frames per second, and our web build runs at like 750 to 800 frames per second.
Jesus.
So yes, it's a little bit slower, but realistically, that wouldn't be an issue. So yeah.
It will be slightly less eye melting.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I figured that just generally, unless you're playing on your grandma's integrated Intel card, you may not actually notice the difference, which is really cool. That's kind of, part of our objective.
Everybody break your grandpa's computer is what Lauren's trying to say. Okay. Next one. With the game being called Ember Sword, will there be some kind of magic in the game that lets you infuse your current weapon with fire or a burn effect or some other element?
Right. So actually, in Ember Sword, although we have a lot of things that appear like magic, all of them are essentially some form of highly advanced technology. Some of which, not fully understood. But in that sense, yes, we will definitely have a number of ways for you to get sort of elemental type effects imbued or infused into your gear, or indeed even specific abilities akin to, say, spells and magic, right? That use elemental type of capabilities. They just will be based on a bit more, let's say, misunderstood future tech rather than magic.
So the Marvel Thor approach, where technology is indistinguishable from magic if it's advanced enough, then.
Pretty much. Exactly. Yeah,
I just like to point out that I read a lot of Marvel comics, and I wanted this soapbox to do so.
Oh no, you've definitely made that clear, right? But so we're gonna stick with that same theme, and
right.
Just for good measure, we'll probably throw in a giant hammer that, for whatever random reason, only 2 players in the entire game can lift.
Yeah, nondescript, of course. We don't want to be sued. Okay, this question is somewhat serious, so this does not fit the theme of that answer also. But how will we solve blockchain scaling issues to avoid high transaction fees for players?
So we are partnering up with Matic, their sidechain that increased performance quite drastically. I'm not sure if I can share this little bit of information, so I'll keep it vague. They are partnering with a lot of prominent utilities that you'd use on the blockchain. So Matic is becoming a very viable sidechain, and as such, it makes a lot of sense for us to use. If for whatever reason there are scaling issues down the line, we could create our own sidechain, but I really don't think that's necessary. But we have a backup plan, like if worst case scenario happens.
Actually, I think what's important there to mention also is it's not just scaling issues, but it's also gas cost typically, right?
And gas cost as well, yeah.
What really sucks is if you have this awesome blockchain-based game, but gas costs on Ethereum go up, let's say, so high, that a lot of transactions simply become non-viable. And with Matic, basically, you lower those gas costs to like 100 or 1,000 that you would have on like the main Ethereum chain, which is great.
Yeah, it's almost negligible.
Okay. Good to know that we're covering all angles in that one, because that does seem like a cornerstone of what we're trying to do. Next one. What can the players do in the capital of each nation?
Right. So I think probably the easier question is almost what can't you do in the capital of each nation?
Right.
If you look at the way the game world is set up, it's this massive sprawling nations with settlements and towns all around, right, that you can visit and where you can do, let's say a limited amount of stuff. Because they're smaller areas and they don't necessarily maybe have every building related to every profession or every type of utility that you might have access to, whereas these capitals tend to just have everything all in one and then some, right? So whether it comes to fighting in an arena or doing some blacksmithing, right, or crafting some weapons or going to the auction house and trading, there'll be a ton of things that you can do in the capital of your nation.
Yeah, and of
Sweet.
course you can start quest lines in most cities, and you can also teleport to different cities, so you can move quickly and follow quests from there and like start a new storyline that you can then unravel.
Excellent. Will EmberSword have an in-game clock, a day-night cycle, based on real time or not?
It will not.
Simply
Well, that
put,
was
yes.
a brief answer.
Well, it is like we did discuss some of these a bit off mic before we started, and it's something to do with viability and just pouring dev resources into this when there are more important things to be done.
Yeah, but the I would say almost one of the most important things that we're dealing with also is that our universe is accessible from anywhere in the world. So if you're talking specifically about a real-time day-night clock, then our first question would be who's real time, and do you really want to be playing with another guy who's for whom it's night in the game while it's sunny and day for you?
Right.
So yeah.
Will EmberSword have its own launcher?
Yes,
I think
it will.
the answer is definitely. Also, for the variety of reasons why it's nice to have your own launcher and environment for an MMO.
Will it be released elsewhere than other launchers?
We haven't looked into this because we don't really see the need for it right now, because it's accessible in your browser directly, right? So you can directly play. If for whatever reason you feel like you need a little bit more performance, or you'd rather have it installed on your computer, you could just download it directly from the website. So the value of putting it on Steam or Epic is not that high, I feel.
Yeah, no, I was going to say when you get to it and you have a game where your buddy can send you a link and you can click it and you're playing in 5 seconds, and then there's indeed the option to download the client whenever you want it. Yeah, it becomes less relevant to be represented in all of these stores. But that's not to say we won't necessarily offer it maybe there, but it's not something we've spent a lot of time talking about.
Right. Okay. Has there been discussion about SDK so that the players could play/display any of their on-chain EmberSword assets in other environments?
So we've not specifically looked at an SDK, but we have spoken with other crypto games about doing some crossplay, so getting some of the EmberSword models in their game and some of their things in our game. Nothing on this front has been finalized because it's still pretty early, but we have and are still speaking with quite a few of them. So it's not planned, but we're very open to it.
Yeah, you can likely expect some crossover at least.
Ooh, that's a bit of a tease. This is what I'm actually really curious about. Have the devs thought about making a wiki, or will the fans have to make one themselves?
Well, I think we would very much encourage sort of a community-powered wiki approach. You can, there's a lot to be said about the game, and certainly we would support a community-powered wiki. I have seen initiatives around our Discord already where people were asking, like, would you be up for that? Yeah, we're totally up for that, because I think, at scale, when it comes to this type of challenge, it's even better to have like a wiki operated by the fans and the players, because no matter how much dev manpower we would throw at such a wiki, the players will write a more detailed, more in-depth wiki than we ever could.
It is a matter of dedication, really, and we're dedicated to making the game and giving the players the tools to actually get invested and create something like this, which is something that I believe we've discussed in previous podcasts, not the least with Sam, in regards to the lore. So yes, everybody, you are totally free to make a wiki. That's what we're trying to say. Here's one that to me kind of sounds like a math question, so bear with me. If a sir or lady owns a plot of land on a baron or baroness's estate within a duke or duchess's region, how does the ownership or ruling of that plot operate?
Yeah, I think the question actually relates to a slight misunderstanding of the way plots, estates, and regions work. Because essentially, if you look at it, a region is a whole bunch of plots. An estate is a bunch of plots within a region, and then you have the singular plots. So actually, a single plot is only ever owned by one owner, right? So if a sir lady owns a plot within some estate, right, then actually whoever is holding the title of Baron or Baroness is holding that because they actually own the plot of that estate that has the settlement on it, right? They own the settlement plot, right? The Duke/Duchess owns the town of that region, right? But that plot of land of the Sir/Lady, right, that is theirs, right? They own that particular plot. And if we want to dive a little bit deeper into that, that will also end up entitling them to some of the proceeds of that estate, which is nice. It's kind of like owning a stake in the Baron/Baroness's settlement as well, to some extent, if you will.
It's good to have hierarchy, at least in that sense.
Yes.
That was a handful. How about a simple one? Is there copyright on any of the game's assets?
Yes. All of them.
Huge yes.
Yeah, so obviously our stuff is copyrighted, because we wouldn't want, let's say, EA or Activision to suddenly decide that they are going to make their own EmberSword game based on our assets and our stuff. That being said, obviously we have a big heart for the community. EmberSword is a game about also empowering the community to create things. So there's copyright, but also expect us to exercise our rights in a sort of more community-oriented manner, right? I mean, despite the fact that there's copyright on our game assets, if you're going to make content for our game and, you'll be able to sell non-fungible tokens about that, you'll actually be able to make money off of fan content you've made for our game, right? If it comes to you publishing a video about our game, I think we can fairly promise, even if in that video you say that we suck, we will not sue you for copyright infringement because you used images of our game to say that we sucked.
But we will be sending contract killers after you, so just...
Yeah, we do have the hired assassins, but I figured we wouldn't go into that for ease at this point, right? Otherwise, it's not a surprise anymore.
Where's the fun in dodging killers if you know they're coming?
Yeah, exactly. But now you'll know, in case you ever install EmberSword and you get to that question of where do your kids go to school, you'll know why we're asking.
How to get players? Threaten them.
No, we love our players, but no. But all kidding aside, we believe in obviously reasonable handling of your copyrights at the same time as obviously still owning copyrights, because sometimes it's a shark eats shark world out there, and there's plenty of big players that would happily abuse, let's say, things being copy left out.
Right. Yeah. Of course. A slightly easier one, I would assume. What ESRB rating are we going for?
So we're aiming for I believe it's called teen, so 13 and up is the one we're aiming for. Considering that EmberSword doesn't have a whole lot of violence and profanity and things like that, we might aim for 30 or 10, but probably 13.
Yeah, exactly. Like 13 is a good guess to go for. Also for the simple reason that, for example, even if you have the slightest bit of a gambling element somewhere, like if we had I don't know, like a little casino where you could gamble some of your gold to win like a game item or something, then you're immediately in the teens, right?
It's a good way to cover our bases, and the upside of that, of course, is that for the lore junkies, I would assume it gives our writers a little bit of narrative freedom to introduce slightly more mature themes and just play around with a more complex narrative.
Yep.
Okay, here's one that is again of great interest to me. If you start your character in Solarwood, for example, but later your friends are from, let's say, Duscaron, can you change or delete your character and start over? And will your land be limited on what nation you belong to?
Okay, so the good news there is actually that you can straight up change the nation of your character. Right? That'll be it'll be a bit more of an involved process. You'll probably spend some in-game currency, right? But just regular old in-game currency to do that. But yeah, it means you can literally change your nation if you have to. So you won't have to change or delete your character and start over. But you can decide to basically migrate to Duscaron. Pretty much real world style, right? You're like, well,
EmberSword is a sandbox, right? So we're not trying to lock you into a specific choice pretty much ever. So this also goes for character builds. You don't have to create a new character. Like in World of Warcraft, for example, you pick one class, you level it up, and then you switch. In EmberSword, you don't have to do that. You can just stick with your one character. You can play with Sword and Shield, for example, and at some point you think to yourself, I want to use a bow, or I want to become a healer. You can do that on the same character. We're not going to cap you on skill points or anything like that. We're not going to lock you into a nation. You can just use one character and use it for everything.
Oh, that's really
and there was this one part about the land, of course, being limited to what nation you belong to. That similarly will not be a limitation. Now, obviously, you may want to buy some land specifically in the nation that you intend to belong to. That could be nice because you'll be spending a lot of time there, right? You might have a harder time running around in another land. That is to say, although admittedly, all of the player-owned land is typically also in safe areas, right? So you can totally be, a solar woodling, if you will, right? And still have land holdings in Duscaron. Not a problem.
The free market working at its best. Okay. Here's kind of a doozy. Are there going to be guild houses, and what happens to land once a player stops playing and doesn't sell it?
So there are guild houses. You can put them on your plot of land, and if you own a guild but you don't have a plot of land, you can still make guilds. Even if you don't have land, you can't put down a guild house. So you'll have to do without one.
But presumably maybe have to rent that land from another owner, right? Because essentially in order to be able to place down a guild house, you would need access to either a settlement plot or a town plot. And if you don't have access to that, maybe you'll find the owner of such a plot willing to lend you a bit of his land to plop down your guild house on.
Exactly. Yeah. In the event someone stops playing that owns land, though, the land essentially becomes barren. But there's very little financial incentive to do that. You have a lot of incentive to populate it and turn it into a profitable asset. So it could go barren, but I would argue it's pretty unlikely.
Yeah. Well, that would be kind of like the sort of the silliest move to make, if you will. Like, even if you're not going to play at all, right? And you're not going to ever do anything with that land, and you don't care about what's on there, then at the very least, you'll probably rent it out, right? Because why would you just leave it there barren? While by renting it out, you can be earning pixel tokens off of it.
Exactly.
Makes no sense to do it, right? So economically, it would be really weird for players to leave all their land barren.
I'm thinking more like extraneous circumstances, like somebody just ditches Ember Sword, like for whatever reason, and that land just stays there? Is it at some point going to enter back into circulation? Do we have contingencies for that one?
No, it does not. So, I mean, there could be the event that someone owns a plot of land and then dies, right? And then the land doesn't get sold and it doesn't change. That is a very real possibility. The thing is, people own these land plots themselves, so we can't take them back. We can't put them back in circulation. They're theirs, right? They truly own them.
True ownership.
So those are the downsides that come with it. But again, there's no financial incentive to do that. There could be some, extraneous circumstances. But
and to be frank, realistically, that will scarcely matter, because when we talk about a plot of land going unused, a large amount of land plots obviously have content that has kind of been predefined by us, the developers, on it, right? So they will work just fine whether they are held by anyone or not.
All right, and to land this podcast softly with something light. Any idea how many professions we may be looking at in the game?
That's a tough question.
Damn it!
It's still a bit of a toss-up. Like some things sound fun on paper, but then don't really end up being fun in game, so they get cut. Currently, though, I think we're at about 12, 13, 14, between 12 and 15. I think we're currently at for professions. Yeah.
And of course, there may be the possibility to add more further down the line, if the opportunity
absolutely.
presents itself.
Yep.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we look forward to building this game out for a while, and obviously we might expand into other professions over time. That's just going to keep things even more exciting.
Cool. Well, and that was all the questions I had. Thanks everybody for listening. This was a thing that honestly I wish we could do more often. The availability being what it is, Q&A podcasts can be far and in between. But I'm doing my damnedest to make it not so. So I would like to once again thank my guests for participating and answering all these burning questions that the community had, deemed worthy by me to be answered on this podcast. So yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's our pleasure.
Hell yeah. And yeah, we will talk to you next time then.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye everybody.
Bye everyone.
Hey you made it to the end. Congratulations. That must mean you like us enough to want more, right? Well, good news! We're all over the internet. Go to EmberSword.com and subscribe to our newsletter for a chance to play the game early, as well as the latest interesting tidbits on the game and the team. Join our lovely Discord community over at discord.gg/EmberSword. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at PlayEmberSword for regular updates on what we're up to. And remember the basics. Drink water, be kind to each other, and spread the word about EmberSword.
Getting a glass of water because, shit might happen.
Yep.
I mean, Joris probably already has his whole jug of water ready.
Well, that's cinnamon
Of course
toast.
I do.
Exactly. Got to stay hydrated, right?
Gotta stay hydrated. Plus, one of my life goals is to turn into a meme, so everything's coming together.
I think you did it.
Love how that is working out for us. No, Joris, we're gonna, you're gonna be on more of these casts with me, right? And you're gonna be a meme in no time. Like at some point, just millions of people online will be sharing meme pictures of Joris.
Oh god,
sipping.
I can only hope.
Uh-huh.
But you just know that if you turn into a meme, it's gonna be an unflattering meme. It's not gonna be what you hope, right? Gonna
Yeah,
be
kind of like
big water.
Remember Attached Girlfriend from like 10 years ago?
That was literally
man.
what I was gonna say.
Oh,
Overly
my-
attached girlfriend.
I'm gonna be one unflattering one, so maybe not.
Overly attached CTO.
Oh no.